President Obama could be facing the first veto override of his presidency over a bill that would allow the families of 9/11 victims to sue the government of Saudi Arabia. The administration argues the legislation would threaten the concept of international sovereignty, potentially allowing private citizens abroad to bring lawsuits against U.S. diplomats and service members. Supporters say that families who lost loved ones in the worst terror attack on U.S. soil deserve justice. And with the bill earning near unanimous support from both chambers of Congress, lawmakers appear to be in a position to override the president's expected veto. So let's dig into the legal aspects of all this with Brian Claypool, criminal defense attorney, and Bob Bianchi, criminal defense attorney, former head county prosecutor and trial attorney. Bob, let's start with you as the former prosecutor. The president doesn't think that it would be a good idea to let 9/11 families in this instance sue the government of Saudi Arabia for some of the reasons that we just outlined. What's your take?
Yeah, I agree with this. Listen, we're very sympathetic to these individuals, these families. We believe in them completely, but we have to look at the collateral consequences of such a decision. As a prosecutor, I do not want to be dragged into a foreign court with foreign laws and having these people go through us with interrogatories, depositions, and potentially abusing their not so good legal system in order to get intelligence. I see this as a major national security issue. What should be happening in this particular case, John, is that the Saudi Arabian government is involved in this, then they should go after them from the executive branch of government. You don't want these things in the hands of judges and lawyers in places where they have an interest to hurt our national security interests.
But Brian, turning to you, the advocates of this bill say this has nothing to do with letting other people from other countries sue the United States government. It's only because in this particular instance they feel there is evidence that the Saudis permitted, engaged in acts of terrorism, and that is specifically the language of this law, and only allows Americans to sue because of that.
John, practically speaking, this is an irresponsible law. It really is just a feel-good law that needs dentures because it has no teeth. Here's why. First of all, it arguably violates an international treaty for sovereign immunity. Typically, you can't sue government officials from other countries in litigation. But this law attempts to abrogate that.
They're accused of participating, facilitating the 9/11 attacks.
All right, well, let's go to my second point then. How can you practically implement this law? For example, and Bob, I'm sure would agree with this, once you file a lawsuit, you've got to serve every government official with the lawsuit personally. Good luck trying to go to Saudi Arabia to try to serve a government official in Saudi Arabia with the lawsuit. Good luck, for example, John, trying to subpoena these witnesses and force them to come all the way to the United States. Good luck trying to get any banking documents from government officials that might show a financial trace to 9/11. And third, here's another great point I think everybody needs to consider. Look at the legal burden that families would have to prove. It's insurmountable. These terrorists on 9/11 were not employees of the government. Therefore, you have to prove that the Saudi officials were directly liable for this horrible tragedy. The only way you're going to be able to prove that is through a conspiracy or somehow they were funding it. And how can you do that absent any emails or any financial documents? It's going to give these families false hope, and I feel bad for them.
John, I would have to agree with that. This is giving the families false hope for all the reasons that Brian stated, but I wonder if Congress really thought this through. Do they themselves really want to be subjected to be subpoenaed to go to places, foreign countries that are adverse to the interests of the United States, when those people make arguments that policies that we had that were executed in foreign lands led to what they consider by their definition terrorism? Not only is it impractical, like Brian is saying, this is a major national security problem here. It's ineffectual in terms of getting any justice for these people in the civil courts. They're being duped and believing that that will happen for all the reasons Brian stated. But this is really upending something that really is in the best national security interests of the United States more than any country. And this should be shot down, and it's a shame they did this unanimously because they politicized this issue, put it onto the shoulders of President Obama to make the tough call, and that is a very unfortunate thing because we have to stop getting past, we have to get past these political divisions and do sometimes what is right for this country as opposed to what is politically expedient.
All right. It's still to be decided. The president has not yet vetoed it. He has threatened to do so. We'll see whether there is an override attempt in the U.S. Congress. It takes 2/3 in both houses, and the votes coming out of bringing the bill out of Congress were nearly unanimous. We'll see what happens. Interesting. Brian Claypool, Bob Bianchi, thank you both.
Thank you, Jim.